Mm. All right, let's go live. All right.
We live.
Almost, I think.
That like freaks me out that we're going live.
I know. Oh my goodness. Okay, I think we are officially live now. Yeah. So, hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Alicia Brachet. I'm representing Cosmic Gateway in conjunction with World Unity Week, and I am here with Dale Holmes. I'm pretty excited for this conversation. This has kind of been in the mix for a while. So we're going to be covering topics ranging from, higher self, compression. I'm sure we'll talk about fractals. I'm sure that'll get slipped in there somewhere, but really keeping in the theme, in Cosmic Gateway's theme for World Unity Week, keeping it galactic, cosmic, and multidimensional. So we're going to also be talking about the ripple effect that you can have through the human experience as well. So Dale, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm pretty excited for whatever's going to come through this conversation. And I know that this is a little bit different to the genre that you are known for. I know that your genre is more in the truth realm and various different topics which I won't go into this evening because we're going down a different tangent. But I like this because I think we're going to interweave personal stories and personal journeys as well, and maybe get the opportunity for people to connect with you at a different level as well. So yeah, that's my intro. Thank you for being here.
How are you feeling after your week?
Look, there's really not any words to describe how I was just reflecting that this officially now is at 12 hours of live streaming, almost back to back all day. So I did, just to preface this, I did apologize in advance to Dale if I slur my words or say something stupid. So I apologize to all of you. It's not something that I'm used to in doing so much content, but it's been amazing. I've had some amazing guests on today and for the rest of the week. So it's exciting times that we're living in too. So before I know that you've got places that you want to start and go down, but I was thinking about our record this morning when I was out on my morning walk, and I thought to myself, kind of reflecting of when we first connected and thinking about all the different amazing conversations that we've had, in that space of time, and how grateful I am and how amazing it is that we get to record this and go live and share these conversations with people, because I think that they're really helpful, they're thought-provoking, and maybe help people get different perspectives going through this chaotic time on the planet. And, when I initially asked you to come on and be a part of World Unity Week and be a part of the lineup, I said to you, well, this is my theme. This is the genre that I have to keep in the parameters, because you said, oh, can I talk about a certain topic that you're very passionate? I said, unfortunately, no. Which, by the way, we do have a pre-record coming up with Rebecca Rose that will be coming up in the next week. So we did go down that topic, but I kind of had a laugh to myself because it took my mind back to when we first connected. So I connected with you after a series of your YouTube videos got continually sent to me day after day, to eventually I had to pay attention, like, who's this guy? What's he talking about? And I think the first thing that I noticed about you, or what pricked my attention, was that, yes, you could be considered someone who's very well researched, someone who's in the truth-seeking community, who has a lot of knowledge and research. But I saw something different in one of those videos, and that was what made me connect with you in the beginning. I was like, this guy knows a lot more than he kind of lets on. That was the feeling or sense that I got. And I remember back to our first phone call.
Yeah.
And and you said to me, probably within the first few lines, so what's your thoughts about galactics and hybrid children? And it took me back, and I was like, I was like, yeah, I was like, who is this guy? And if I remember that conversation correctly, I think we were sort of dancing around each other because you're probing me out, and I was like, well, actually, I know a bit about that, and I've had my own experiences, and I could feel you on the other end, like going, this chick is nuts, like absolutely. Maybe not much has changed, but and I thought, here we are, and I'm bringing you on a segment so that we can talk about galactic, cosmic, and multidimensional, and here we are. So
yeah, I remember. I'm like, oh yeah, you had experience of VTs, and you're like, oh yeah, and I'm like, oh shit. Although, but it's quite weird because I've got like heaps of books on it. Like I've been researching that shit forever, but like, it's it's rare that you actually do come across people like that. I was at a convention one year, and he goes, "Oh, has anyone been to Mars?" And this lady right next to me, she goes, "Oh yeah, I've been to Mars." And I was just looking up, holy shit! No, you haven't. But yeah, it's a different world, isn't it? It's like, but I guess like with what's happening on the planet now, and with things coming out about what this reality is and what's been happening, there's this is sort of the next jump of where it goes. Not that I'm any expert on it, but
well, you know what? For someone who I initially, my look, I'll be honest, my first judgment of you, my first preconceived notion of you was, this guy is very skeptical. This guy has a very high level of discernment, and it's going to be hard to, no, not hard to, I was going to say hard to sway you to see a different perspective, but that was actually really incorrect of me to have that, because as I've got to know you and through some of the journeying and experiences that we've had together in conversations, like that depth has been there. And I think that one of the things that I truly believe, and people might have a go at me for this, but I think that we all are experiences. I think we all have some level of contact. Doesn't necessarily have to be labeled galactic or cosmic, but to our higher self, to the non-physical realm. And it's only when we start to come into that consciousness that we realize that perhaps it's been there all our life, and we can start to pinpoint that. And yeah, I don't know, it's been a cool journey since we've connected, and the things that have unraveled. So I'm really excited to get into the nuts and bolts of what you have prepared, and then we'll sort of free flow and see where we go.
Yeah, and like people come into your life at the right time for the right reasons, don't they? And like obviously, like I've learned quite a lot of stuff off you too. Yeah, like stuff that I never thought I'd sort of go through experience either. And yeah, you've obviously, I don't know, you've got that sort of power when you connect on an energetic level with someone else that, weird shit starts to happen to them too. So thanks for that.
Sorry,
But
Dale.
no, it's been good. But anyway,
All
let's
right,
go.
let's start. So did you want to start talking about compression? Is that kind of the first? I know you've got a list.
Yeah,
I can't see a list. So
So like this, like I sort of posted some stuff about this on my Telegram and I've always been very weary of going down this path. Just because I guess like a lot of my audience sort of, I guess they might get turned off by that sort of thing. But as far as compression is like anything, it's very simple and it's also very complex to understand. So like I got this this term, I'd never heard it said by anyone. It's about the fractalization of the planet, and it goes, it's not the planet, the universe, and the makeup and the nature of it. And I heard George Cavassos speak about it in this term, and I've rarely heard many others explain it that way. And I'm sure when you get those little aha moments in your life, and when I heard this, you can hear something explained and you can think it and it makes no sense, or you just can't grasp it. And I did hear it a few times, and then once it just clicked, and when you just get it, and there's no amount of studying or whatever that can, all the stuff that I had learned, it molded into that idea. And he's got this structure of how he believes. Now, this is only his perspective, but how he believes the universe is created. But I looked into, if you want to speak about what fractals are, so I read a book called, obviously, like I got introduced to a lot of this through David Icke, and he speaks about the base structure of the universe is waveform information fields, which then converts into electrical and then into holographic. Now, I don't think we're not only holographic either, because people have this concept, oh, it's just a hologram, it means nothing, and that you're completely missing the point if you go that way. But then there was a book by Michael Talbot. He references him a bit, so I ended up buying that book. A few other people so I'll give you a couple of examples. There was one, there was a stage hypnotist, and he had I think I might have told you this one. Yeah. So I'll tell you, he had a party, and he put someone under a hypnotic suggestion and then said they wouldn't see his daughter in the room, and then he held a watch up behind the girl's back. And then took him out of post-hypnotic suggestion, and he was able to read the watch through what appears to be a solid body. But then if you go into the holographic universe, even your body is just an information field, and the perception of the brain can allow it to be there or not be there. And like just these sort of stories really blew my mind. And then even like the Baxter experiments, where they were hooking up ficus plants to electroencephalographs, and someone would say, I'm going to burn the plant, and then the plant would have a response to that. So and this is going into, well, everything's conscious. Yeah. And like, that brings up a whole other thing with like vegans and stuff too, because, and this is the structure of the universe, is consumption. Even when we take in light energy, we're consuming, and it depends on the relationship between the two entities. And like if you see like the Avatar movie, where they kill the animal, but there's a form of ritual and respect behind taking the life, and you don't take something that you don't need. But like, and then the last one was he talks about experiments where they put like a flower into a vase with water, and then they can take out and freeze frame all the water particles, and every single one of them contains the entire memory of the flower within every, and this is how they do homeopathy. Because people go, how can homeopathy work? It's just diluted, whatever the substance, but because of the holographic nature, it is in a hologram, every small part contains the whole within it. And these are little experiments that show, and so then if you understand the holographic nature, then that explains compression, because you look at like what's happening in the universe or what's happening on TV in the world, and it's all an internal process, and it's part of the collective field. So if you think of compression, that the universe itself had to compress into a galactic form that we see in the Milky Way, which has the entire creator within it, then onto the solar level, and then you have the Earth as the fractal of the entire galaxy, and then the human form being another compressed fractal of the Earth itself, meaning that you have all the life force as the creator compressed into one form. And it's like, it just absolutely blew my mind when this sort of stuff stuck. And that the holographic nature is actually, it's like this divinely written code that is able to project itself all the way through to where you think, oh, I'm just having a nothing 3D human experience, where it couldn't be anything. There's nothing more important really than what we're doing. And we've been cut off from the creator, but we're being cut off intentionally to go through that path, and all the hurdles that are stopping us along the way are the ones that are more distorted or taken away from the creator. So like this force, which is also part of the creator itself anyway, but an aspect of that is trying to stop. So have you ever heard the quote, if you're one-eyed and you want to control two-eyed, you have to make two-eyed blind. And that's what this force has less access to the creator than we do.
Mm.
So it has to keep us at a lower perception state than itself. And that we're now all we have to do, if we break beyond that, it has no control.
Mm.
Sorry.
No, I'm just taking it in, and I understand what you're talking about, and I'm trying to tap into visuals as you're talking about it, because that's how I process, especially when you talk. I kind of see it in visuals, but I'm actually having this sense going up my spine and like in and around my neck as you're talking, and I'm just trying to process that as I'm taking in the information. But it's vast, isn't it? It's vast information, and it's kind of it's a layering consciousness to be able to understand that. And so some people will be able to listen to what you're saying and get it straight away if they have sort of the layering steps, while other people might think, what, and need to come back to it, but a seed has been planted. And I guess, like, coming back, I want to ask you, because you said you came across information and then all of a sudden one day it just stuck. Like, can you talk about what that process was like for you? Like, were you out running? Like, what was the process of when it, like, that stream of consciousness came in? Did it come in visuals? Did it come in like just a knowing sense?
Yeah, it's like a feeling. I don't know. You're probably the same too. I just like to like zone out and like it's like walking, and that helps. Like, I know you get a lot of insights when you're in the shower and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you have like you've been saying too, you have like lots of aha moments throughout your life, and you can never predict when they come. And it can just be like a tiny bit of information that puts everything together. It can be an experience as well. I think I told you, I used to, when I was a kid, I'd lay in bed and contemplate infinity. I'm talking like a very young kid, like 4 years old. And I would just lay in bed and think about what infinity meant. Because Mum used to tell me that you go to heaven when you die. And then I was like, well, what do you do there? And she's like, oh, you're there and it's peaceful and happy. And I'm like, that doesn't, I didn't like the idea of that. Like, just because it seemed like a confined place that, and it sounds insane, but like, why was I? But I don't think as a kid, because it was being explained to me in religious terms, and I was my only concept of anything else had to be God, right, and heaven, which these realms do exist as well, but it's not everything. And then like you think about what is so like I mean, I've had many of those moments. I think I had a big one last year, and it was actually JCK that she said something, and it wasn't anything really profound that she said. It was like the right time, and there was some sort of connection. I felt what she was saying. It was beyond words, and it was absolute pure, like probably the most I've ever had in my life, just a connection from my heart all the way out to whatever it is, call it the creator or whatever. But like, it was such a brief thing, I'm sure you've had these too, haven't you? Like, you can't put that sort of thing into words when it just something hits your heart like that. I think it was to do with Uluru, actually.
Yeah, it was all, if I remember correctly, it was all,
triggered me.
yeah, it did. But I think it was the connection home, or connection to the heart. This is kind of new information to me when you were sharing about as a child and contemplating infinity at a very young age. And when you told me that just recently, I was like, what? No, that's what I was doing at that age. I don't think I met anyone else that was doing it. And I forgot about all that. And I think I'm getting to a point here, but I had forgotten about all that, and I never shared that with anyone. And it wasn't until like going through more and more of my ascension journey, and connecting deeper with multidimensional realms and trying to pinpoint the pieces and put it all together to understand it from the beginning of my life till that moment, and to see it from that perspective looking back, that more of those memories sort of made more sense to me. Like, it was like, the memories that I had was like, I was like, what happens when I die? Where do I go? Then what happens? Where do I go from there?
Yeah.
And then what happened? And I'd never told anyone that. So when you said that, I was like, what? But I also remember having images of, as a child, of being the last person on the planet. And
Ooh,
that, yeah, which,
I Am Legend.
hmm?
I Am Legend, the movie.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't either. I think that's what anyway.
Um,
Well, do you know, like, do you know what would happen with mine though? Is like when I'd contemplate infinity, and I'm like, it would end. I think I must have, like, part of my soul had blockers, because it would end in absolute abject fear. It would never be like a nice thing. Infinity, it was terrifying to I like was making myself insane thinking about it. That I had to completely wipe off thinking about it. There was like a mass blocker there.
Do you, so where I'm trying to come back to and where I'm trying to tie it in is when you have those epiphanies and those aha moments, and people call them downloads, or there's different terminologies for it, but do you think that in those moments you're reconnecting with a soul memory, with a remembrance of something that you know already on a soul level, and you're starting to just filter in back into your consciousness for a reason, for a purpose? And how does that link into, like, the compression and what we're going through? Sorry, that was a very long question. I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah, I think shit, you have to say it again. How does like when do they come in? Yeah, it's 100%. It's a remembrance. But that's why you sort of like, that's why it's like, you're like, oh shit, like, of course. But you weren't meant to know until that point. The last one I really had was around the mud flood sort of stuff, and I still don't know what that's about, but I know there's something to it. I know there's something there. And like, even remember that cartoon we spoke about that does that, like, hidden human history?
Oh, so that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just like there's something about that. I don't know a lot of stuff around that, but there's something deep in that
There's a lot of coding
just
that.
triggers that sort of memory. But how it goes into compression is that if you go off this model of the fractals going into human form, then the human form holds the highest light and frequency in the entire universe. And then, like, I won't go into the satanic stuff as I usually do, but it does make sense to why they're after this life force of the child, because that it's almost like ways of them trying to cheat or access the creator without having to go through the journey of being human. They're trying to hijack their way home, but it can't be done. And as far as being the compression, the fractal is, we're being human if we're chosen the hard path. And as far as the ripple effect in the universe, what we can do is not anything so small that you think is so small is massive on this level, because it's so dense. But the ripple effect then carries on out, because, like, if you speak about the hologram, every part contains the whole. So if you contain literally the entire universe within your body as a human, then you metamorphosizing or evolving or ascending, that creates, because you if you're talking on a galactic level, because you're multidimensional. You're Alicia in this human body now, but you're also a planet. You're also a galaxy. You're also an entire race of beings, and that a warring star system out there that is you. If you think that because of the compression down on this level, so that could be a warring argument that you're having with a mate, because your other mate is also a galactic system out there as well. and yous having a bickering for a week could be a freaking eon long war out there, and but you making up and making peace with your friend ends the galactic war out there. Do you understand? Like, that's how powerful the compression is, that you can't comprehend the smallest, good things that you can do in your life at the scale that can have on the impact in the entire universe. And I'm not just saying that as contemplation. I fully believe that, because, and and you can see the fractal. Look at the eye, right? It's a galaxy. The pupil is a portal.
Thank you for sharing that example. That hit home for me in a big way, and I think many of us can relate to. And I'm going to relate back to something that in the language that I understand, and why the individual ascension process is so important to the whole. And it's not just this planet that's going through the rebirth, but it is impacting the entire planets, the solar system, the galaxy. And you've just put it in such a simplistic, relatable term of what we can do as human beings, and that impact that is impacting on other dimensional levels or other planetary bodies that could be 100,000 years in the past, and and then it impacts the future as well. So it's like this conversions of timelines almost. So when you're talking about compression, it's almost like we're merging and healing the traumas and wounds from the past as far back beyond when this earth was created. And then also we're looking into what I call new earth, just earth in a higher frequency, and where we're heading as human beings, and reconnecting on a galactic level. And it's like right now we are in the I don't know if you'll agree with me, but it feels like we're in this compressed experience to create that friction, so that then the earth can rebirth itself. And I'm seeing it as visions, but it's like this fractal, this explosion of light, and it rebirths, and then that ripple out effect. But it starts from like merging past, present, and future. I don't know where I'm going with that. That just came through.
But it's a big responsibility too. If you think of that level of the compression, that is huge responsibility, because it's not just you, because you're multidimensional. You're impacting everything on a small and grand scale. And you can also look at it too, that if you take in compression again, that us sitting here now, this is the most enlightened and also closest to the creator that you've probably ever been, because of choosing the path that you have now to be compressed into what seems a dense reality, where we're so far cut off from the creator, but really you're holding it all within, if that makes sense.
And I think I have to thank you for really teaching me about that, because I think we share very similar mindset in a lot of things. But I remember an incident where you were telling me, or you were showing me, how my process has always been drawing source light in, right? From above, bring it in. And you were like, no, it's already inside me. I don't need to draw upon anything. And that, which I kind of look at now and I kind of shake my head. And I think, how have I never come across this in all my years of all the different techniques and energy work and stuff like that I've done, but I had never come across it. And when you said that, and it was only by me kind of tuning into your energy and seeing that you literally do draw upon that source light energy that is already embedded in you. There, you're fully self-sustained from that and connected to that. And that's a powerful thing, because then that kind of leads into sovereignty, doesn't it? And the ripple effect in what can happen when people reclaim their own sovereignty and connect to that. How does that impact? And I'm going to let you sort of take that away.
Well, that's and I get like this, like George Cavaslis really really drilled this home for me too, that his website's even called I Am Infinite. That's what it's called. Which is like, it's called IamInfinite.love. How the hell do you even get a .love on the end of it?
I love that.
But like, he taught me a really simple strategy, and it's like, and you can adopt this, you know, like I was telling you, so like when you go through bad periods in your life and you're up and down and stuff, but like, you always know if you've got, you know, don't like to use the word spiritual, but if you've got that spiritual understanding, you're never completely lost. You always know that, like, it doesn't really matter. And he says, I'm infinite, just the simple thing, but actually contemplating, and like, I think about what does it mean? And infinite, well, the in is just the negative prefix. It just means I'm not finite. And that's the simplest thing. And that means I was never created. I always have been.
Mm.
And this why this brings up a lot of other weird stuff, because then this goes into the whole God realm too, and that people worshiping and praising God. Now, like, and that's fine if people want to do that. But for me personally, I don't see the need to worship anything. And my creator doesn't ask to be worshipped. It doesn't want to be worshipped, because I'm infinite. I exist as part with the creator. Because the word infinite means I was never created. I always have been. And this I would contemplate this again as like a 4-year-old kid as well. That I'm like, well, how was I created? And I was like, well, God created you. I'm like, well, who created God? And no one can answer that question, right? No one can answer that. If God's a creator, who created it? But that's the paradox. There is that life is infinite, and that, you know, this is only one universe. We're going to go do this. But I think I was talking to you the other day too. This is like, when you talk at this level too, it really does brush off a lot of the crap that's going on the planet now. And I'm completely not for the whole distorted feminine that goes with the of taking no action either, where they've sort of pushed to that whole way of no action being taken, because that's a distortion as well. That's not what I'm talking about. But just when you contemplate this too, this is where you can find courage to fight the system if you want to, or stand up for yourself. And really, what's fighting the system? It's like saying, no, I'm not following your rules because I'm sovereign. And then you go into the higher level. Why am I sovereign? I'm sovereign because I'm infinite, and I've got nothing to fear.
I love it when you bring it back to that. And I think from my vantage point, that's what's always got me through reflecting on a personal level, hard and chaotic times in my life, is going to that bigger picture of, you know, all this stuff is happening. So comparing it to what's happening on the world scale stage right now, there is a lot of chaos, a lot of turmoil, a lot of distortion. Perfect word, Dale. And, you know, we can get so bogged down into that density of that experience, and it can be very heavy at times. And it's like, where that courage comes from is that remembrance of the eternalness of the soul, of your life force energy, of who you are. And sometimes when you can bring that into the perspective, even in the everyday, it can give you that boost. It's almost like injects fuel into you so that you can stand up for your rights, or say no to something, or, you know, whatever it is, however it plays out in the individual's journey. But I think that's so important, to be able to take in that bigger perspective, especially going through times that we're going through right now. And I think that we're in such a precipice, and we have been for a while, but it's becoming more and more that way. But I wanted to come back, because you were talking about no worship, and I know that I am sort of in agreement with you. You know, I do believe in empowering the individual and the person. You know, personal empowerment is the most important thing, sovereignty, all those different terminology. And that can be a really hard thing to do when you're born into a dense planet that's going through massive change. But to bring it back to the galactic aspect, I mean, just looking at what's happening, you know, with the release of the documents and all that sort of stuff, you know, then that ties into looking back in Earth's history and how they were worshipped. You know, off-planet beings, star beings, galactic beings were worshipped, and the fear of any being that's coming in from a higher density, that has greater knowledge or greater technology, do appear godlike to a lesser or more primitive species. And I think what we have the opportunity is to rewrite history and not play into the, you know, the cycles that have been, and really go through that. I don't know where I'm getting at here, but bear with me for a second. I think it's important to talk about, like, you know, the potential of what could happen as you know, reconnecting as interplanetary, you know, connecting with other races, and not and meeting them as beings and not godlike. I think that's important, and I think that's why, in my personal belief system, a lot of galactic beings have not intervened, but come or been incarnated into souls who are working on that multidimensional level, so that that doesn't repeat itself, and they kind of stand back a little bit too. Yes, I do feel that there is a support level there, but it's like they don't want to um, they don't want to be worshipped. They don't want the power to be taken away from us. They want us as human beings who have the power and capacity to do and make this shift, and move out of victim consciousness ultimately, and move into higher levels of consciousness and shift the planet.
Yeah, yeah, and look, the beings that did come here in the past, they wanted to be gods, and you know, it's said by many people. I'm not experienced in any of this, but like that, you know, even in Star Trek, that you don't interfere with primitive races and stuff too. But even like the first line of the Bible is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It doesn't say that. It says in the beginning, Elohim, and "in" means plural. It says in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth. That's the first line of a monotheistic religion, which is not monotheistic. It's polytheistic. And you know, that goes into all that Nephilim sort of stuff. But you're right. And we obviously played out that cycle of worship. And yeah, look, the time is coming when we're going to be open to our galactic brothers and sisters, right? It's coming. I mean, we're in disclosure right now. I don't know what's happened with these docs. I haven't seen anything. I think they'll come out on the 20th, so they can't have been too big of revelations. But I haven't been watching much. But they are slowly introducing us to this stuff. And there's a good one that Wilcock put in his book. There was a group of it was US soldiers in the Pacific, and they stayed in an island in it was like West Papua, Timor-Leste, or something, like really remote place that had seen no human life. And they parked their helicopters there, and they took over for a couple of years, gave them flour and all that sort of colonizing bullshit that they do. And they came back 40 years later, and they had a whole religious structure where they were carving helicopters. They dressed up like US soldiers with gun replicas and everything. And this is what happens. I'm trying to think of the word for it. But if you think on a higher level, you got ET beings coming in here with like freaking space crazy shit that, you know, we're not aware of. The same things can beckon to happen too. And even beings that are appearing to be of the light can do that as deceiving as well too. But I'll say, like, I mean, obviously I don't have the experience with these beings that you do, but my discernment is if there's any form of worship, if they want any form of worship, then that's the biggest trigger for me.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we talk about this because, you know, discernment is the number one thing that people really need to have at the forefront, navigating their way through this. And, you know, anything that takes your power away, anything that wants something, you know, like you have to question that, and where is the motive and intention. And that comes down to into all realms. Like, think looking at the spiritual realm and people who channel, you know, I'm one for being really discerning about channeling, you know, for the same reason, because it's like and messages should come from a place of love and empowerment, not taking people's power away and making them, you know. So it's always about discerning where information is coming from, what is the perhaps agenda behind it. And I think very importantly so, I think that there have been many agendas played out on this planet, and still are.
It's a big proxy war. I look at Earth as just a big proxy war between all these other, you know, like in the Middle East, like with Syria, the US was arming the rebels and Russia was arming the government. That's what Earth is. It's like all these beings with different agendas, all fighting proxy wars, and we're stuck in the middle.
And
but why are we the prize? Why are we the prize?
Why is that, Dale? Why is
well, that's what I'm telling you. That why are they so interested in us if we're these low, unevolved beings? Why is there so much interest in that? Why do the Greys want to? Why do they have all these breeding programs? Why do they want us? There's something that they don't have access to that we do, right? And we might not, we necessarily don't have the technology, but we don't need the technology either. If you explain the compression again, but that's what I think too. That this is only a thought that the human being is the most evolved because of the compression, and that they can choose that path as well. Not in their life now, but at the soul level, if they want to go through the human experience, they can choose that path. And the ones that are wanting to do a lot of, you know, harm and stuff and keep us down, they don't want to choose the path.
No.
They're jealous of us. There's jealousy on that level.
I'd like you to talk more. I love it when you start to talk about this, because then my mind starts ticking and I'm like, oh.
But it's like, I mean, like, you know, like I'm so very sort of distrusting of certain beings, and if I've had like, like I had like, yeah, like I've done those sessions that, and these beings were telling me to chill out, just chill out.
Well, it's funny because I find it amusing that you don't consider yourself an experiencer, because I consider that you have had many experiences, and that you are very tapped in and very connected in that way. But you do have that level of distrust and high level of discernment, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I was going somewhere with that, but
I was gonna, but like, so I've got a question for you though, right? So, because you hear this story a lot, okay, but with Christians, is that their life was completely. I won't go. I'm not bagging out Christians, and like Christianity is great. It's got some of the best teachings ever, but like anything, it's a book. It's the entire knowledge of the universe isn't contained within the Bible. I'm sorry. It's not, nor any book. And like I said, we have that within anyway. But, you know, there's great things within the Bible. But like I've heard this story many, many times too. You know, they were down in the dumps, their life was over. Jesus appears, and then they devote their life to Jesus, right? Now, I'm sort of okay with that. Jesus appears, they have an experience, and then decide to be, but I get a bit wary sometimes when it's like, I'm going to devote my life to you. Well, that's worship to me. And then I would say, you probably need to be a bit careful of that entity if it's asking to be worshipped.
Yes.
And I'm not saying there's a Jesus too, but because these can be other beings appearing as that, as a distortion, because not only, but we know that they feed off fear, certain entities feed off fear, there is a feeding off love as well. Love and adoration and worship. That's also, and because of, again, how powerful we are, giving that, if you're a compressed fractal of the universe and you're giving your love and adoration to another being, that's a super fix that being's getting off you, you know, more than they'd ever get. But I guess if yeah, I mean, you got to have those experiences. I haven't had those experiences, but like, I've thought about if I did, like, how would you read that energy of the being?
Mm,
How would
mm,
you know?
mm, mhm.
Like, have you had those experiences where you've had ones that want to be worshipped, but they
No,
no?
no, no. And I think when you were saying that, I think that's a really good example to break down, is that I think there's a difference between someone having, and I think we've spoken about this before. I think when people have their first experience of coming in contact with something that is non-physical,
Mm,
so whether it's a galactic being, whether it's Jesus, whether it's, you know, their deceased aunt, you know,
yeah,
that does something to the human,
yeah,
our own experience, because it, especially if you have a belief system that is you die and that's it, and then all of a sudden you have a materialization of non-physical form coming into physicality,
mm,
you know, that is a catalyst for an awakening, because it makes you then reevaluate your entire life and belief system. Right. And I always say that when people go through their awakening and have one of these experiences, I call it the holy shit moment. And I've had
yeah,
many in my life. And and there's a certain level of process that you have to go through to understand it, to integrate the energy, to, you know, there's a whole process that um, happens around when you start to interface with otherworldly beings. Um, and I think the energy itself, it does something to you on an energetic level, on a DNA level. And I think that some, with benevolent intentions, I think that's the purpose of it, is to activate something to awaken within you. And that's generally what happens. So I think there's a difference between someone having that experience and then having a conscious choice that then they want to devour their life to that being, or that, you know, whatever it is. That's a choice that they have made. Whether they're manipulated, I can hear where your mind is, whether they're being manipulated or not,
yeah.
is, but is a different story. But and maybe that's how it would work, now we're going, now we're rolling. But I think that I have never come across anyone who in a non-physical form that has straight out asked me to worship them, or asked me to adore them, or, you know, that hasn't been my personal experience. I'm sure that that has happened more times. But I think that it's something that each individual has to go through, and it's part of their own experience too. Maybe if you look at it from a much higher perspective level, maybe someone having one of those experiences and then going through a phase of worship, or uh, you know, admiration, or, you know, devotion, to then realize that they're giving their power away to then come back to their sovereignty, maybe that was divinely written.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And like, and if people get steered down that path, you're meant to anyway. So,
Yeah.
but like, I don't know. I always got really uncomfortable in like Islam. You know, where they get on the knees. Just the practice of being on the knees, just really. I'm like, what are you on? What are you on your knees? Like, you've got it all in here. You are equal with the Creator. What are you bowing to? But that's, you know, like I've spoken before about this force, this distortion, that you can see an aspect of that in the way that they do that.
Mm,
And like again, I'm not having to go with Muslim people, but you know, but it's the belief system.
mm,
And then if you really go into Islam too, the Islam is it is connected to the lunar cult.
mm,
This is why, like, you know, I won't go down there. No, but like, you know, like in Turkey, it's always the moon crescent. It's the worship of the moon. Now, if you think again, a lot of people think that the moon is, because of compression, you need a hijacker on every level. So that is the hijacker of the feminine on that level. The moon would be
mm,
right. Now you think of the force of what's hijacked the moon. You know, if that's to be quite evil, and then people getting down on their knees is part of a lunar cult praising that
mm,
entity.
mm, mm, mm,
You see how like the loop works. And then even like in Islam too, what do? They cover the face of the woman, which is what? The moon hijacking the planet, hijacking the feminine. I don't know if you wanted me to go there.
Oh, it's fine. No, it's fine. No. But what?
But do you see, like we were talking with compressions before, how it works on every level? What they call it, as above, so below. That's what compression is, right? If it's happening here, it's happening there. It's the same on all levels. So if there's a hijacker on the planet, this force that has taken over, then that system must exist on every level.
And it does. It absolutely does. I believe anyway. And
and I know I might bring this one up too, because this is a crazy concept as well, because I've had this conversation with you, that if you believe in the compression too, then the sun itself had to compress itself into human form and be a human being. This could be Jesus. This actually gives credence to that idea that the Christ was here, right? This was the sun, the S-U-N, on the planet as the S-O-N. But that would also mean that the hijacker would also have to come into human form. And that Satan literally did walk the earth, or possibly still does. And this could go up into the Illuminati bloodlines, where they have these top breeders, and is there a central human controller?
I believe there is. And I wonder whether that, and this is literally going in, thank you, you completely walked right into my next question or topic. Because we had a really in-depth conversation a week or two ago, where I started to get this download, and I realized after, because it was like Saturday morning, like random thoughts in my head, and then I messaged you, and I realized I must have been tapping into a thought form that you were having. And well, I won't use names here, but I said, a lot of people in the truth and disclosure communities get very upset and angry about, control and certain people, and what, injustices and things that have happened. And also there's no excusing that, that injustice is injustice, abuse is abuse, all, these things do need to be healed on a personal and on a collective level. But what I was saying to you is that, some people think, well, take that person who's been the perpetrator, take them out, incarcerate them or whatever. And I said to you, but everything is energy. So if that person is just a host for an energy that works through them, that is like a suppression energy or a controlling energy or an abusive energy, if that person is then unable to do that for whatever reason, that energy is just going to go somewhere else, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so it just got me thinking about how it really is an energy. It's a consciousness that we all have. So getting back to the compression fractals, and that to really bring us into a new phase, into new earth, into the golden age, all the different, what do we need to do to obtain that and move into that on an individual level, but on a collective level as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, actually. I only have this conversation in private, but I may as well say. All right, because a lot of people go, especially, all right, if you're following the alliance sort of stuff, what are they doing? They're clearly, like, the whole Biden presidency is a disclosure operation. It is so blatantly obvious. And look, it's going to get bad. It's still going to get bad. And this is why, because like you said, David Icke spoke in one of his books. He spoke to Christine Fitzgerald, who was Princess Diana's closest friend for many years. And she spoke a lot about how the royal family were not human, that they were hybrids, and that there's some sort of weird metamorphosis, genetic splicing shit and rituals that they do, that when, say, like the Queen Mother died, that entity just goes on and inhabits the next body. And this is what you're saying, let's go, Bill Gates is Ghislaine Maxwell's a pedophile, let's kill her. what's the point?
Mm.
That the source of that energy does not reside in Glenn Maxwell. That is, it takes human hosts everywhere. And the only thing that changes it is knowledge, and the knowledge through collective consciousness, through this understanding of what's going on. And you can understand why they've run this disclosure operation in this way too, because what are they going to do? We're going to go take everyone down to Gitmo and kill them? It doesn't work like that. There has to, they won't be here when the energy won't allow it to be here. And the energy won't be allowed to be here. The only way that can happen is through knowledge and through people knowing what this evil is. At this moment we're at now, some people are just starting to understand what this is. And it's a big collective F off. We are not slaves. We are going to be sovereign. We're not having this anymore. Then those entities can't inhabit these human vessels to carry out their agenda. They can't do it. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's true, isn't it? Because that's this whole mentality. We just need, like, let's just get rid of them. It's like, no, we can't get rid of them because nobody knows they exist. Very few, it's getting more, but yeah, and this is part of the collective field that we live in too, because we're all individual aspects of it. It's like the 100th monkey syndrome. That stuff is just insane, where this is proven in science, where they'll train monkeys to do something, and then thousands of miles away they'll learn it at the same time. And there's the same with they call them like spontaneous inventions, where someone will go, I invented this, and then but some dude in Russia invented it on the same, and then they'll argue over the patent. But it's not. They've both picked up in the field this idea at the same time. Have you ever heard the one like Wilcock talks about, like, if you do the Sunday crossword, it's way harder than if you do the Wednesday crossword, because by Sunday, everyone's put that into the collective field. And then by Wednesday, you're already picking it up, so you will do it easier. And they said they can predict this through this study being replicated.
Well, having said all that, what's our responsibility as human beings? What is our what is our responsibility? What is our responsibility?
What do you think? I'll ask you first. What do you think?
Well, I think having that conversation with you, and when we spoke about it, I love it, because it always sparks for me, because you'll talk about something, and then I go away and I think about it, and I try and come up with a solution of how can this be overridden. It's like you bring all this truth and knowledge and information, and and credit to you, Dale. I mean, you've been diving deep in some of the darker stuff of human occult history on this planet for eons. And I don't know if you're going to mind me saying this, but just from a research perspective of what you've been doing, for a couple of decades now as Dale Holmes, but I know that your soul has journeyed and it had a lot of these experiences, and that is why you are doing what you're doing. You're very much in mission and in purpose from my perspective. And I think that there is purpose to everything. So it's like you bring this information, and then I think, oh, how can this be overridden? How can this, because then I come from my own perspective, right? How can this be healed? How can this be transformed? How can we, move into a better life? And so after we had that conversation, or I had that download and we talked about it, I was like, what can we do? What can we all do on an individual level that will then reclaim sovereignty, reclaim personal power, and then have that ripple effect out into the planetary bodies, the cosmos? And really, I believe it comes down to something that's really simple, and it is working within our own self, working within our own energy, or, for other people, I'm going to try and break this down. It can be like our programming, our mental capacity. It can be our emotions, but it's a combination. But ultimately, it's an energy, because we've been talking about the energy, and that is of victim consciousness. and separation and polarity. And it's about having the conscious awareness that resides within us, because we are the fractals, we are the compression. And what we're really trying to bring back on this planet right now and into the, greater cosmos at large is unity, is peace, is love, is harmony, is balance, is, higher level consciousness. So from my vantage point, what we can do all as individuals is work with healing the wounds and traumas of where we've been hurt or persecuted or misunderstood, all those things. If we can work on healing that within our own experience, from wherever that comes from, because it might just be in our personal, I'm Alicia, this has been my, experience in this life all day, but as you were speaking about earlier, it comes from a much wider, you're talking about how you might be fighting with a friend, but you're also warring out in Orion, 10,000 years ago. And by putting it to an end here now, it ends it there and brings back. So I think it comes back to awareness, knowledge, consciousness, and ultimately, I say healing, but I don't like that word because I think it's about coming back into alignment and resonance.
Yeah, well said. Very much in line with the week. I would say, I would say all that, and it's really the only thing that's going to change things here, and it will, is just the stripping away of every program of perception that we've held. And it, like David Icke again talks about this, he calls it the blank piece of paper. Just go back, get a blank piece of paper. Nothing goes on there unless it can be backed up. And it's a process of thinking about, oh, I believe this. Oh, why? Why do you believe that? And just knuckling down to what is it do I actually believe, and what am I doing here?
Mm.
What's the purpose of this life? I don't know the answer to that question, but
you do. It's already within you.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's like, and then I don't know. I don't like people giving people advice too. It's like, just follow the synchronicities, and when you feel the need to take action, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to have to take action soon too. They're not going to have a choice. But that's and that's the final process of the spiritual man, is eventually taking action.
Yeah.
And I don't mean freaking pitchforking and stuff. I'm just like, whatever. Action can be anything. Like what you're doing, like this week, doing these videos. That's action. Other people have other actions,
Yeah, it is. And I think when you're saying you don't give people advice, it's no. I mean, you can guide people, depending on what your role is, but ultimately everyone's journey is so individual. So, it's about being able to give people the tools to help them then navigate to access their own guidance system, and then to find out what action is right for them and what is going to be the best for them to move forward in whatever that process is that they're facing. But I like what you said, because I think that it's true. I truly believe that, and this has been topical throughout today and probably for the rest of the week, about the masculine and the feminine and on the planet. And, there's been a lot of conversations that have been taking place around, healing the toxic or wounded or distorted feminine, and also the same for the masculine, to then be able to bring them back into harmony, into the divine sovereign essence of the masculine and feminine energies, which I believe that we all have within us. We have our masculine and feminine aspects, but we take on different bodies and different forms. And I think that's part of bringing back the balance too. But going back to what you're saying about the masculine taking action, the masculine energy is one of physicality, of action. whereas the feminine is more connected to the ethers and the non-physical, and being the creator energy. But it's the masculine that brings it into the physicality, into the physical world. And that's where, when you see, you know, what Nick's doing in the rise of the temple of the rising masculine, and this sort of uprising of these conscious men on the planet, it just warms my heart, because I always felt that the tipping point would come when we start to see the uprising of these men taking their power back.
Yeah.
And then that always, I don't know if that makes sense, but to me that was always going to be the final phase, because
yeah, sorry, go on. Yeah.
No.
I was going to say, I remember talking to you last year saying, yeah, like, I think the women heard the call first, and Mark Passio talks about this too. The feminine in his principles of natural law is the feminine is the non-aggression principle, right? And this is like, do no harm. That's within the universe. That's what you're supposed to follow. Don't harm anyone, non-aggression. But then there's a self-defense principle, which is divine masculine, right? And we're under attack. So it's resisting tyranny and being sovereign. That's the self-defense principle, which can happen in many different forms too. But so you're right, and yeah, I can see that you're right. I think that will come near the end, when the blokes finally stand up.
And you know, I got a lot. Yeah, that makes me smile. Makes me smile when you said that. I have a lot of respect for men. You know, I've said this before on other videos that we've done on Roundtable and things like that. I have a lot of really beautiful men in my life, and I've always had a lot of respect for men. Being raised in a family with predominantly, you know, two brothers and all male cousins, like I felt like I grew up in a male predominant, you know, sort of environment. I was reflecting on this recently about how much compassion I have for them when I think about how much suppression the divine masculine has gone through, you know, and warring and over eons of, you know, trying to get up and fight and you know, take action, and then being squashed and suppressed, and then trying to get back up again and then being squashed. And you know, I think that in some communities, you know, men can be like, oh, you know, masculine need to, but when you take it in from that perspective of the amount of times of trying to get up and then being pushed back down and then up, you know, and it happens on both sides. I'm not just talking about the men, you know, females as well. I think we're going through this as a human collective experience of where we have been pushed down and then come back up, and sometimes, you know, to have that happen repeatedly over and over and over, it wears you down, you know what I mean? And then to take that final last stand, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of resilience and a lot of strength to be able to do that. And I think that's kind of the feeling of where we're at. It's like, I don't know about you, but I feel completely exhausted on all levels. You know, this year has been extreme. Last year was crazy. I mean, each year is getting more and more intense to push us, to give us, through the extreme polarization of experience, to give us that friction to make that leap. I hope.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it just makes me think Hero's Journey again too. When you sort of make press down and then come back for the final stand, it's like, yeah, this is Harry Potter again when he dies and then he comes back. It's like Neo when he takes the bullets and then he realizes what he is and then he comes back. It's like when Simba's on the gorge and he's holding him and then he, you know, it is that final part of the movie, isn't it?
Yeah, there is. We're gonna wrap it up in a second, but I want to throw this couple of more questions your way.
Okay, go.
We did actually, it was the very first interview that we ever did together. I got you to talk about the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And I said, where do you think we are?
What did I say?
I can't remember, but I'm going to ask you again. like almost 12 months later.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you think we are as a collective if you look at the hero's journey?
Well, it's after that final point of the quickening, and then when the the hero has to face the villain for the final time, right?
Mhm.
So he's become aware of his reality. It would appear, okay, so like I always like to use what's it, Billy Madison. Seen it?
I think
No, not Billy Madison. No, sorry, Happy Gilmore, the golf one, right?
yes.
So like he's like, it really ties into the stuff that's happening in the US because I mean the scale of the hero, you could say another 10 years, you could say within weeks, but it does look like the villain came out of nowhere, pipped at the last minute and won, right?
Mm.
But then somehow they find a way. So we're probably actually not even to that point yet too, because that is the point, at the last point of all is lost.
Mm.
I don't think we're there yet. It's hard to read into it. It's so hard to predict what's going on, but I do feel there is still, just based on the consciousness of the people around me and what I'm seeing, that there has to still be a massive kick in the guts.
Mm.
But so be it.
So my other question was, where are you in the hero's journey? Where's Dale in the hero's
I don't know. Well, it depends when I'm going to die, doesn't it? Okay, on my soul journey, I'm hoping I'm like right at the end. I'm about to hold up the trophy.
Are you?
Is that a bit arrogant?
No, no.
In this life, do you know, I've always thought about this too, because I was like, I need this idea that I need some terrible thing to happen in my life so then I can overcome it and become the person I'm meant to be. And this terrible thing never quite happens.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like a program in itself too, isn't it? That you're waiting that nothing good can come in until something bad sort of has to happen. But yeah, arrogantly, I think I'm near the end. But again, but this goes into what I was sort of telling you last year about when I felt into that heart thing, and that it was sort of saying that, like, I think I do want to go home.
I was about to say, yeah. Where are you going on that journey?
I'm going on another adventure, but I'm going home first.
Which is home for you?
Hey,
Where,
sorry.
where is home for you?
Well, it's like if I said before about like the compression stuff and that, it's not a physical place.
Mm.
It's where you always have been and you always will be,
Mm.
wherever that is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dale. Final final thoughts. Final thoughts for people who are watching in terms of where they're at in their own hero's journey and what they can do in their lives that will help contribute to make them the person that they're always meant to be, and then contribute to the greater collective in getting us as a human race where we need to be. What would you say?
I think like what I said before is to start with a clean slate about how you look at everything,
Yeah.
and and where your perceptions come from.
Mm.
And then I think we've got a chance. There's so much stuff that's going to come out that we're gonna have to rewrite history. So be open to whatever it may be that you can put on that blank sheet.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well,
Thanks, mate.
thank you
That was
so much.
good.
Thank you so very, very much. Thank you everyone for watching. If you are new to Dale's work and you find it intriguing, I will put down in the comments section where you can go and find him on various other social media platforms, not necessarily the mainstream ones. But Dale, I just want to thank you so much for the work that you do in uncovering the very uncomfortable topics, the things that people don't want to look at. but it's necessary, and it's so important, because we can't heal and resolve things that are swept underneath the carpet. And I feel like a big part of your soul's journey and offering in this lifetime, and a combination of many others, is to go into those deeper parts, to bring light to them, because at the core essence, and when you talk about going back home, my perception of you, I always see you as like a golden energy, that I see as like the highest vibration of what I call source. And I don't connect you necessarily to other galactic races, and I think we all have our own individual origins. But I think that you have that energy, and I think because you have that energy within you, it allows you to go to some of the darker places and to expose it and bring it back to light. So I want to thank you so much, not only for coming on and sharing and talking, but the work that you do on a daily basis. I know that it can get wearing on you sometimes, and you do a lot. So just endless amounts of gratitude for what you do.
Thanks. And can I say too, well done to you for putting on this week, because I know it's been a massive task. And obviously really time consuming, but it's definitely been worth it. So good on you. And I can't believe you got David Icke on. I'm looking forward. So cool. So I'm looking forward to watching that one, but I'll have to watch the others too, because I haven't had a lot of time. But well done for all the work you've done this week.
And I can say this year, I didn't get to say it on my David Icke interview, because that one has already been done. I think it's scheduled for Thursday morning at 6 a.m. Melbourne, Australian Eastern Standard Time. But if it wasn't for your influence in my life, I wouldn't have reached out and connected with David Icke. And I feel like that was a really important interview. And it was purely because of your influence. I mean, I was connected to his work, in my teenage years, and then, went down different paths. And through hard times that I went through in my life last year, and the timing when you came in and we were having a conversation, and you referred to something that David Icke had spoken about in his book, it reconnected me with his work. And it wasn't just that, but that was like the catalyst moment of me going, oh, I didn't know that about David Icke. And then as it unraveled, you continued to share with me various things about him that got me really reinterested in him and seeing him from a whole different perspective. So really, everyone who is looking forward to that interview should really thank you, and thank you for helping me put together the questions for the interview. So thank you, Dale. I'm going to sign off now. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And just endless love and gratitude.
See ya.